So Ben and I talked about in one of our other podcasts some alternatives to open fire cooking when you're out in the woods. Because right now, due to COVID and stuff, here in Nova Scotia anyway, there is a full ban on open fires. So some of the things we had mentioned I have laid out here on the table, and I thought what better way than to do some water boil comparisons here. That way you know going into the woods kind of what you're getting into with each one. So what I have here is my normal backpacking little wood burning stove. It's nice and small. It's a rather inexpensive one off Amazon I got a few years ago. But what I'm going to use it for is kind of my pot stand. Now you can go online and just do a Google or YouTube search on homemade camping pot stands and lots of stuff will come up. Maybe later on we'll do a video on that of one of our own that we've designed, but right now there's tons of good information on there and there's no sense repeating the wheel on that. Actually, Mark Young. Mark Young's a friend of ours. Go check out his video. I think he has one. If I can find it, I'll link it down in the description there. And he makes a really nice homemade pot stand. Anyway, the things I wanted to look at that we kind of mentioned there was the alcohol burning stove or a penny stove, which Ben had actually demonstrated on the podcast. The butane stove, which is kind of my backup for when I go into the woods and I'm not allowed an open flame. And something that a friend of mine came up with at work was these methanol gel cooking fuel canisters. Now you see these a lot in catering. When they have the big stainless steel dishes out, they'll put a couple of those under it, keeps all the food hot. This one actually came from the camping section. It's made for cooking, so I thought, cool, that one's good to try. This one does not have a wick. It is gel only inside, but you can get the wicked ones, and I think they'd be relatively the same. So the idea is, I'm going to use my stove as a pot stand, as I said. We're going to try boiling 2 cups of water at a time and just see how long it takes with each of these methods. Now the water has been left out here for an hour and a half. It's about 6 degrees outside. It's probably a few degrees warmer in the sunroom here just because it's closed in and there's very little wind. That's why I'm in here. But I'm still going to say it's probably like no more than 8-9 degrees in here. So I'm going to assume the water is about 8-9 degrees, which is not unrealistic if you were out in the woods during this time of year and maybe camping. So let's try the gel first, and we'll get 2 cups of water in just what is a small stainless steel, very inexpensive camping pot that I think I picked up from, oh heck, I don't even know, maybe Canadian Tire or one of the other big box marts. Might have got it online, I can't even remember now. It's not the one I typically take out in the woods. I usually go with my GI cup, but this one kind of had a nice base and I thought it'd just be easier to work with for the use of this video. So there's 2 cups, and this is a 1 cup container. And for this I found that if I take the bottom off my stove off, which is just kind of allow the air in for gasifying, this actually matches up very nicely for this gel. So we take the lid off the gel, and I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's kind of a nice jelly substance in there. We'll set that down in. Lighter, I know I didn't take a ferro rod or something, but another video. So there is a flame burning there, and I will say it's one of those nice blue flames that's really hard to see, so be aware of that if you try this. We'll put the top on. And I have another camera set up here, and I'm going to do the old stopwatch trick. So we'll bring that up, snap this on, and we will start the time. I think for all intents and purposes, that's good. So yeah, real quick chat. The methanol was relatively inexpensive. I think the 2-pack was $10, so you're looking at $5 a piece. I don't know how much of it's going to be used up. It wasn't like full right to the top kind of deal. It was down maybe 1/4 inch in the container, so we'll look after the water boils, see how much of it gets used. It's nice because it self-seals. And the lid is here, and you should be able to put that on, set it down inside your cooking apparatus, and it shouldn't leak or anything like that. So that's a good advantage of that. Plus the cap works for putting it out, or I assume it does. We're going to try that at the end of this and see how it goes. So we'll let this boil. I got the timer running. Chances are, for the sake of the video, I'll speed this up. I might make an on-cut video. That way you can see it in all its long-lengthed glory, if you shall. But we'll give that. Right now, we're at about 1:07 6 seconds, there's little bubbles forming on the bottom of that pot. So still a ways off from a rolling boil, which is what we're looking for, but not bad for 1 minute in. So we'll give that a little bit, and we'll check back in maybe at the 2-minute mark. So we just came up on 2 minutes, still not a boil yet, no surprise there, I didn't figure it would be, but we're still getting quite a coagulation of bubbles there. The first ones are starting to lift off the bottom and come to the top. I would pull this camera over, but I don't want to really break the timer there, so once it's at a rolling boil for sure, then I'll take it over. So we just passed the 3-minute mark. Still not a rolling boil, but it's almost to the point of simmering. So it shouldn't be too much longer now. So just crossed the 4-minute mark. Not a lot of difference between 3 and 4. I'm actually a little surprised there. So we just crossed the 5-minute mark. Actually, I'm a couple seconds late. And it looks like it's just about to start, but I said that 2 minutes ago and I was wrong. So we'll keep on watching and see how this goes. One thing I did notice was that underneath the flame is, I want to say it's not super strong, but I think that's just the way it's kind of burning. In my own 2 cents there. I would still take it. I do see this maybe being a little prone to wind. Well, actually, it seems to hold up pretty good to me blowing on it, but I mean, a strong wind may be a problem. So we're now at the 6-minute mark. Still more the same. starting to see quite a bit of steam now. So hopefully before too much longer, we'll actually have that nice boil. And I'm really starting to think I may use this batch of water to make a cup of tea while I'm out here, because it is a little bit cool. Oh, and I should mention, this is of course uncovered. If I covered it, we'd probably cut that down a little bit more, but I wanted to be able to watch the pot directly. And there's zero wind in here where I am in my sunroom, so if anybody really wants to know it, I could probably do the test again with the cover on. Seven minutes, still no boil yet. So we just hit the 8-minute mark. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but you are starting to get that sound of almost like the water's ready to boil. If you ever boil water, you know what I mean. Hopefully this camera's picking it up a little bit. So just came up on 9 minutes, and I mean it is just on the cusp of a rolling boil. So hopefully before 10 minutes we'll have a boil going. So 10 minutes, 10 seconds. It's just starting, but it's not quite a full rolling boil yet that I'd like to see. So it's 11 minutes, and I guess technically it's boiling, but but you can tell the flame seems to be very centralized over on this side of the pot. So I'm going to give it another little bit and just see if it gets any better. So we're at the 12-minute mark. No real significant difference from 11 minutes. So I think I'm going to let this roll right through to about 15-minute mark and see if anything changes. And if not, we'll call it about there. If something does significantly change, we'll come back to it. So we're at about 14 minutes 50 seconds, and honestly the cover on does make a huge difference. So I may do another video at the end of this with the cover on to see if we get a little different results, because by putting the cover on, almost within 30 seconds it changed from inside boiling in one little spot to almost a rolling boil across the whole pot. As soon as the lid comes back off, it kind of dives right back down to that single little spot. And I'll see if I can pull this camera in and get you a little show of that. So you can kind of see it's just located where the flame's basically hitting. And I think, all reasoning aside, that's kind of what these were made for in the, set that down, make sure I don't set anything on fire. That's kind of what they were made for in the catering industry, was more to keep stuff warm, not really boil it. So might be a little of that, might not be a little of that. The cover definitely did make a big help in it. So for the next one, I'll probably be putting the cover on. Now here we go. You can maybe see the flame there. It's hard to say. Gel might have eaten up 10% of it. So slide that on. And there we go. Fire's up. Stove itself is fairly warm. I mean, the can, I could probably pull it out of there with my bare hand, but it's warmer than you really want to comfortably do that, I think. We're going to go for it anyway, though. There we go. All right. Set that over there. So next one up, it's a classic. We're going to try the old penny stove. And I flipped my ash pan over just so you could, or just so I could get this a little higher to the top. Now the thing with these penny stoves, they use about an ounce of fluid, and what I have in here is a 15 millimeter measuring cup, so it's going to take 2 of these. But you have to get some on the outside of it. You actually have to heat up that stove a little bit so it gasifies properly. If you don't, I find it just puts itself out quick. So that's going to be the idea here. Alright, everything's cool enough, it shouldn't combust. We'll scrap the water idea and get rid of this. Or scrap the tea idea, actually. My viciously cooling the pot back down. That is the beauty of this thin stainless steel. It cools very quickly. There. It's pretty cold now. It should be fine by the time I get this done. So first thing, we'll put the 2 cups of water in it. Because being an alcohol stove, and I'm just using 99% I see propylene. Anyway, I'm just using this stuff, which was picked up at the local big box mart, and it was relatively inexpensive. It's not the best stuff if you're going to do this. There's some better things out there, but this is what I happen to have on hand, and generally, if I go into the woods taking my penny stove, pretty much what I use, because I can just get it easier. So there's our 2 cups. Now, we're going to go 15 mils. It goes down the center. Another 15 mils. And this one I'm going to try and splash over the side a little. And you'll notice I actually have a dish that came with my stove specifically for alcohol stoves, which I don't know if this is the purpose it's supposed to serve, but I use it for literally catching a little of that alcohol to kind of prime everything up. So I put about half of that in there, so it's probably 3/4 of an ounce, and then I just kind of put the rest around like that. And there's different opinions on how to do this properly, so do your own research on that. That's just how I seem to do it. And you're going to get a pretty good pop of flame here for a second. No, nothing got my eye. Just did scratch mine at the same time. And that's just kind of the whole can pressurized really fast, and it needs to settle back down. So we're going to set the top on that, and hopefully, if this all goes well, we'll start to see some flames kind of come around the ring there. That's really what we're looking for. Still burning a lot of the alcohol off the top there. She almost looks like she might have went out on me. Yeah, man. And this is kind of a problem with these penny stoves. They're not the greatest in cold weather. And this is a little cool for this. the center there, and I doubt if I put my quarter over that if it's going to work. Yeah, no, she's just going to go out. There we go. She's starting to prime up now. Once again, kind of the downfall. This is a little finicky for colder weather. Now that it's priming, you can see that it's actually working quite well. Just want to make sure my Alright, so start this up again. We're going to do cover on this time. Start the timer. The good thing about the penny stove, gives you a wider spread heat. Bad thing is, as you see where I'm using ibuprofen, or anyway, where I'm using ibuprofen, it's a little dirty. It's making some soot on the pot, and that's really the biggest drawback with using this stuff that I find. Everything requires a good scrubbing after the fact. only 3 minutes and 30 seconds in. We're already starting to get that rolling sound that we had from the other one after a lot more time. So a little harder to get going. And I'm going to self-admit, mine is not the best penny stove that you can actually make. Hopefully Ben will do a little bit of a video for you guys on how to make a good one, because he is better at it than I am. 100% admit that. So 4 minutes, and we have a nice rolling boil, and I mean a nice rolling boil. So 4 minutes with the alcohol stove. That actually surprised me a bit. I was really rooting for the methanol a little harder on that one. Now the downside to a penny stove, and you can see how mine's not that well because this flame should be blue and less yellow, is you have to let it burn out. You can make a snuff for these and a kind of like a gauge to adjust how much flame comes out by taking the bottom of another pop can and doing it that way. And if I had something flat, I would even try to snuff that out a little bit, but I'm thinking that's probably going to be not easily done for me right now. So we will be back once this burns out. Actually, we can just kind of set that aside. Let it do its thing. I'm going to get rid of the water. Alright, so my preferred method, and this is really going to screw with this I think, my preferred method is one of these little butane backpacking stoves. Now the downside to these, of course, is that you have to carry the fuel. But I mean, with all of these options, you're carrying some type of fuel, be it with the methanol and self-contained, or you're taking a little bit of some sort of alcohol fuel to take with your stove. They all unfortunately have to take fuel with you. That's kind of the downer side of that, or the downside of that whole thing, is where if you make a fire in the woods, you're just burning what you find. But this here is by far my preferred method, personally, just because of how quick it is. Now one of the downsides is, unfortunately, the cooking surface is pretty small. Like, I mean, you've seen how big that pot stand was versus this, but I think the advantage of this is just how ferocious it actually is when it comes to cooking or heating. So we'll do the 2 cups, 1 and 2. And to start this, the benefit is there's a self-igniter. And this was actually a fairly inexpensive stove. I think I got this on Amazon for around 11 bucks. So there we go. It's on. I hope this is still in view of the camera. Reset. And this does have adjustable flame, so I am going to turn it up when I go to boil this. So let's start. So she's on the flame. The alcohol stove just burnt out. I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to turn that up a little bit. Now it is noise. That is another slight downfall. So there is some noise to this. But once again, it's very quick to heat up. So a little less than 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you might have seen in the video I reached in and turned it up a little bit periodically as well. And that's just because my own personal preference, again, I don't run them wide smash and open to begin with. I like to gradually turn it up just so that the whole system has a little bit of time to heat up, and you don't run the risk of blowing a whole bunch of the butane through. It's my own personal belief, just kind of based on, I don't know, just my own experience, I guess. So that's the way I would use one of these, and that's how I tested it. So now that we have tried that, butane obviously the quickest, the alcohol stove being second, which surprised me. I do want to try the methanol one more time with the lid on, and I'm hoping I have enough water. Alright. Flip that around. That does need time to cool off. Almost like it was meant to be. We are just a hair short of 2 cups. It's probably around like a cup and 7/8. So going into that, please be aware, or going into this, please be aware of that. So, same kind of dealio. Light it up. I'm going to give it a sec to kind of build itself up. That only seems fair. We did that with everything else. Top on. Lid on this time. Start. Personally believe if you could find a way to spread that flame out a little bit more, cover more area, it might stand a better chance. But I don't really want to get into modifying this just yet, because that could make it so we can't use the cap to put it out and stuff like that. So I just kind of want to base it directly off how it comes from the store. I think that's still recording. Yeah. So we're at the 2 minute and 30 second mark. This is where the butane stove was at a good full rolling boil. And finger in the water. We are coming up on the 3-minute and 30-second mark. That's about where the alcohol stove was at a nice full rolling boil. And apparently I have a squirrel running behind me. But anyway, at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I can still keep my finger in the water. So it's not looking very hopeful for the methanol. So maybe not as good a method as I thought it was originally, but I went into it untested. So we'll just wait till we see where the actual full rolling boil is, and then we'll come back. Uh-oh. Not sure why that turned off. Well, apparently this camera only has an hour of recording in it. 40 minutes-ish, I think, is about where it clicked off at. But it's an old camera with a busted screen. I can't really complain. This one still seems like it's going good. Ooh, it's getting low too. Hopefully this runs through. 5.5-minute mark. I mean, it's uncomfortable to keep my finger in there, but it's still a far, far throw from boiling water. Well, 6.5-minute mark, we can start to hear that almost like it wants to try and start boiling sound come out of it. 7.5. It's just starting to roll a little bit. So at 8:14, it was rolling about as good as it was in the first time I attempted this without the cover on. So that might be it. We're going to call it at 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Just to kind of prove that, because my other camera is out of juice. Hopefully that looks right. So yeah, about 8 minutes 30 seconds to get a rolling boil out of one of these methanol containers. And honestly, the boil's not as good as it was with the alcohol or the butane. So, never did make that cup of tea. Yeah, you can tell the temperature just doesn't, it's not there, not like any of the other ones. With the alcohol stove, I would not be able to grab that quick off. But you know what, that's pretty resistant to wind. Ah, good boil. Put it out. So, in a pinch, the methanol would work. An alcohol stove, especially if you got one that's tuned better than mine, it's a great option. They are a little prone to wind, but my preference, if I was going to recommend something, it's still going to be the old butane stove. It was the quickest to boil 2 cups of water. Honestly, weight-wise, it's not that much heavier than taking around the methanol on its own. It's a little bit heavier than taking around the alcohol stove and alcohol, but I think pound for pound, it's my personal choice in any case. Am I saying it's the best thing ever? Of course not, but out of the 3 I tested here, that's what I would recommend, because I mean the canister I think was $8 and this was 11, maybe 12 bucks. So for the sake of, let's say $20, and I've had this canister going on, this is my 2nd year. It's about half full still, and I've used it a fair bit. But I mean, I don't let it run needlessly. I only start it when I'm ready to use it, and I shut it off immediately after I'm done, and it's mostly for just boiling water, for cups of tea, coffee, or rice or something like that. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit, make some educated decisions on these items. And if nothing else, we learned a little something. By keeping the lid on, we almost knocked the time in half. For the methanol, which I assume would prove very similar for the rest of the stuff too. So if you are wondering if you should boil it with the cap on or cap off, or if it really does make a difference, kind of no-brainer, but yeah, it really does. Alright guys, hopefully you like this. We'll catch you in the next video.